could I just say one more thing? It wasn't my husband who committed the murder, it was my father.
Police were on the trail of the killers of a man whose body was found dumped and burned at Dead Man's Hollow, Cambridgeshire. The identity of the victim was a mystery, but fragments of a burned memo found by the body led them to a factory in King's Lynn. Blood in the factory's medical room matched that of the burned victim. Now they had the murder scene, but who was the murderer? The police started to dig through the staffing records at the factory.
We obviously concentrated on the time of the murder. The body was found on Saturday. We realised that on Friday, the factory had closed about 3:30. There was a security guard took over, and he hadn't been seen after the Saturday morning.
Once we were able to get the roll call for working that evening, we were able to identify that a male named Nishan Bakuntz was the night security guard for that factory. Nishan Bakuntz had left at 6 a.m. on the Saturday morning, which was the 21st of December, the day the body was discovered. He'd mysteriously disappeared and had never gone back to work.
Obviously, we're not ready yet to arrest him, although he's now certainly our chief suspect for this murder. So we do put him under surveillance to find his comings and goings.
The police investigated Bakuntz's financial records.
We then did a lot more background on Bakuntz and proved that he had bought a gun, a blank-firing weapon in Great Yarmouth, together with a knife and blank ammunition.
The blank-firing pistol Nishan had bought was a type that could be adapted to fire homemade bullets, like the ones used in the killing. On the day of the murder, he had bought a petrol can in a garage around the corner from the factory and filled it. In October 2003, Bakuntz was arrested on suspicion of murder.
The evidence against Nishan was now overwhelming. Bert and his team could link him to the gun, the petrol can, the medical room, and the body. They'd found one of their murderers, but where was the evidence that could tell them who it was they had murdered and why?
Now in custody, Bakuntz became completely silent and judged psychologically unfit for interview. The police interviewed his wife, Arpine, on suspicion of assisting an offender. She told them that a man had come to stay in the house with her and Bakuntz in the weeks before the murder.
She admitted that there was a man staying at their house, and she only knew him by the name of Sarko, and that her husband would take him out and he would stay at the factory all night. So all we've got is she couldn't give us any other name apart from he was Sarko, and he'd come across from Europe.
They circulated Sarko's name and description to the police on the continent.
We received a phone call from a Belgian federal police officer who was able to identify Sarko and the fact that he was quite a mean, mafia-style murderer who the Belgian authorities were looking to arrest.
The investigators were shown this video of Sarko. Sarko was also an Armenian suspected to be involved in people smuggling, drugs, and prostitution. He was wanted for murder in Belgium. He'd fled to Norfolk to lay low with Nishan, who'd been one of Sarko's former partners in crime. Witnesses confirmed he'd been staying with Nishan and had been with him at the factory. So, if Sarko was the victim, why had Bakuntz wanted to kill him? The answer was that Nishan had turned over a new leaf, and Sarko was the last person he wanted darkening his door.
Nishan Bakuntz had developed a normal, I guess, family life in Great Yarmouth, and with children were thriving. Him and his wife were very happy. Sarko turned up, and I believe Sarko upset the balance in Great Yarmouth for Nishan, because Nishan knew how potentially violent Sarko could be. Arpine was very nervous of Sarko and wouldn't be left alone with him, hence the reason that Nishan started to take Sarko to work with him on night shift, and Sarko slept in the first aid room where the murder ultimately took place.
The only way out Nishan could see was to kill this violent mobster who was threatening to destroy his new life.